Today we're diving into Essilor Luxottica's actual business model, financials, and a lot more. This company is involved in everything surrounding your eye, from medical technology for your checkups to the actual glasses when you find out that you have terrible eyesight and it's no wonder you've been walking into walls lately. Now you may not have heard of them, but that is by design. Maybe you've heard of Ray-Bans. How about LensCrafters? I'm mixing information from a 500+ page document and other sources so you don't have to read them. This is not financial advice. Let's take the perspective of someone who just woke up one day and felt his vision was a little off. He goes to LensCrafters, but he also could have gone to Target Optical, Grand Vision, Apollo, Sunglass Hut, and all of these companies here. They're all Luxottica. He talks to the optometrist here who uses machines made by who? And unfortunately for him, he does end up needing glasses. So he goes and picks out his favorite style. Most of these are Luxottica, so he gets them. But he also wants sunglasses. Not transition lenses, but a second pair of sunglasses. And guess what? They own or manufacture every single one of these. Well on the journey there, but they got to own everything because the previous CEO liked to buy a lot of companies. Whether you wanted to sell it like Supreme for $1.5 billion or not. Like Oakley. Through their big network of stores and brands and alleged monopolistic powers, they've made 26.5 billion euros in revenues, which is up 4% compared to last year from over 150 different countries. They have a market cap of 112 billion euros. Let's take a look at the eyewear and eye care industry both now and into the future. Many countries have big populations of old people, and it's only expected to get worse. And so will rates of presbyopia, which is farsightedness. It's typically developed after the age of 40, and with the number of people over 45 in 2050 expected to reach 4 billion, up from 2.4 billion today, their need for vision care equipment, glasses, etc. is going on the up and up and up. The industry is currently worth 120 billion, and Luxottica expects it to grow at around low single-digit rates for the foreseeable future. Now let's talk numbers. Geographically speaking, North America is their biggest market, but they are seeing the most growth from EMEA, Europe, Middle East, and Africa, and the Asia Pacific. Their innovations like Varilux XR and Gen S have helped all across the board, and in Asia Pacific specifically, Stellest lenses have grown by over 60% in fiscal 24. Now you're probably wondering, what is Varilux XR, Gen S, and Stellest lenses? Varilux XR is their improvement from Varilux X. They scan your eye and create a virtual twin, and then create the best lenses for you given your movement patterns. It's a little sharper and just a little bit better in motion, although the reports online are quite mixed. Gen S lenses are photochromatic lenses, or lenses that just change into sunglasses whenever you go outside. These just happen much faster than before. Stellest lenses are lenses that slow down myopia development or nearsightedness in children. That's basically when you can't see objects far out into the distance. Here are their revenues in the long term. By the way, this is post the Essilor Luxottica merger that happened in 2018. You can see that they do decline due to the pandemic, which is to be expected, but they get back next year and have another year of fantastic growth before going back to a steady 4%. By the way, they averaged out 7% over the entire time frame here. Going back to 2024, looking at their income statement, specifically their cost of sales, you can see that they don't spend that much money on the actual product. Estimates lie between $4 and $30 while they sell them for hundreds. Some allege that this is monopolistic pricing because they do have 36 and 47% market share in the US and Europe and 20% globally. So they do have a lot of pricing power. Their revenue gains have outpaced their cost of sales, and they've spent around $600 million on R&D through their over 50 facilities. Another thing they've spent money on is the Supreme brand. They bought it from the VF Corporation for $1.5 billion, which they bought for $2.1 billion. They only sold it because it wasn't exactly performing that well. Luxottica does have experience dealing with luxury brands, so we'll see if they can change that. On the medical side, they are constantly acquiring companies. There's Washington Optical, there's Heidelberg Engineering, the Espation Group, who makes some non-invasive medical devices for diagnosis and treatment, and that's just in 24 and a bit of 25 because they closed the last one a little later. Skipping through the rest of their operating expenses, we see that operating income is 8.5% higher and the net income ends up around flat due to taxes. Over the longer term, net income has grown at 13% annually, but it is slowing down. Their stock ticker is EL and they're traded on the Euronext Paris stock exchange. Over the past 5 years, they've returned 107% to shareholders and have a dividend yield of 1.6%. They also have a relatively high PE ratio at 47. Their current CEO is Francesco Milleri. He's worked at Luxottica before the merger for 9 years and post-merger for another 5. He has a vision for the future of Essilor Luxottica, and it is tech-driven. They are making some massive moves already, but I do think they have one major problem which I'm going to bring up later on. Let's start off with their less well-known tech product. It's called Nuance Audio. It's a pair of glasses that helps people with mild to moderate hearing loss. Audio is captured through the microphones, with most of them being in the front to capture conversations. Then they have speakers on the frame so it plays a little bit louder. Nothing actually goes inside your ears, and you can control the volume through the app, and they even double as prescription or even transition lenses too. There are no wires, and they've already been cleared by the FDA and EU regulatory bodies, but they do have a steep price of $1.2 thousand. Although to be fair, that is quite a bit lower than regular hearing aids. They see a market because 1.5 billion people have hearing problems, with most of that being mild, and I'm sure the vast majority of people will just decide to tough it out, so I don't know how big of a market they really have there. Here's our second product. It's just a little bit more well known. Ray-Ban's partnered with Meta to make these smart glasses. Currently, it can do stuff like real-time audio translation, calls, you can send messages, listen to music. They're still improving the product, and both of these companies have decided to continue collaborating with each other into the 2030s. They've also deepened their partnership by working with the Oakley brand and when Meta bought a 3% stake in them. While Meta buying 3% of them does mitigate the risk I see, it's still there. Because Luxottica's core competencies are in making glasses, not exactly the tech part. Meta, Google, Apple, they are far better at the technology, and ultimately that is the core driver of this new stuff. Right now they're working together, great, but if the partnership breaks, Luxottica may not exactly be able to keep up. If they start charging one of the big tech companies just a little too much, they might decide to just throw a couple $1 billion at the problem and buy a competitor. Also, think about this question for a second. Let's say you buy a pair of high-tech smart glasses from one of the big tech companies, and it turns out to be fantastic. Is there even a chance that you decide to buy a pair of non-smart or dumb glasses from one of the other companies? Let's say you have a flagship iPhone or Samsung. Are you getting a Nokia? Competition-wise, none of the other big companies are as vertically integrated, but they do have some competition. For example, Hoya. That company makes lenses, eye medical equipment, and a lot more stuff. On the selling side, there's companies like Warby Parker, or perhaps even the Sofilo group. Pause if you want to read a little more about them. A portion of the market has shifted to going online, but even with the ability to see how glasses look on the app, which Ray-Ban has by the way, it's not exactly too popular, because it seems like people want to purchase glasses in person to actually see how it looks in real life. And also, the vertical integration really helps there. Talking strengths, they have the #1 market position with alleged monopolistic powers, and they own everything from manufacturing to retail. They own some iconic brands and work with the brands that they don't own. They are a player in the medical device industry, which has far bigger barriers to entry, and they also do have research competencies to make the next generation of visual products. Weaknesses wise, at the same time, while they are partnered with Meta, their chips, frames, etc. may not be enough to beat the other two big tech companies who are also working on making these products. But they do have a chance. They do have a chance. Opportunities wise, I am seeing a lot of cool high-tech big glasses, so they may be able to integrate their knowledge on eyes and make some products that might help disabled people too with their knowledge on, for example, the Nuance Audio ear thing. And as the world is getting older and the vision capabilities are continuing to get worse, guess who's there to help? Threats-wise, they could face regulatory intervention. If you start scratching at the surface, you'll see that they own a big swath of the market and have very big powers. And powers that they have used, by the way. For example, how do you think they got Oakley again? They sort of pressured them, lowered their sales, kind of copied them until eventually they offered them a deal. And Oakley accepted, because they had to. Their Q1 results show that revenue has gone up by 8% compared to the same time last year, and it's spread out pretty evenly except for Latin America. Latin America isn't doing great. For the full 25 fiscal year, they are expecting revenues to be at between 27 and 28 billion, and operating incomes to be right around 19 to 20% of that. The adjusted 2024 figures, by the way, are to help with comparability because the 2025 predicted figures are calculated in the same way as the adjusted figures. That's Essilor Luxottica, the company that's been on top of the eye industry for a long time now, but the question is, will they continue to be on top? Anyway guys, like, sub, goodbye people.